This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
This table is really tilted.
Excuse me? Am I gonna get a chance to speak?
Maybe I should take that back.
Denied. Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Take a giant step for mankind.
Welcome to the Tilted Table with your hosts, Sean and Joe.
Folks, welcome to another episode of The Tilted Table, the internet's answer to a question that no one asked. I am Sean Kabibi.
And I am Joey Joe, the Fracky Mac.
And welcome to another Freestyle Wednesday, which I said in a previous episode.
It's all freestyle all the time.
And now it's just basically freestyle. Hey, look at that. We get to fly off the cuff.
Mm-hmm.
This is all organic, raw, straight from the hip.
You know, it's funny. I do go back and listen to our episodes, and I clicked on one of the very first ones and then matched it to one of the recent ones. I'm like, wow, we have come a long way from when we first started.
Oh, yeah.
Just in the way that we flow and riff off of different things. Like, it's awesome, man. I'm super proud of both of us. And especially for the consistency and how we've been able to stay on track, like repping it out week after week after week.
Yeah, we haven't missed a week. As of this recording, and I don't know if this is the next episode. I don't know if people have figured out yet that just because we record something doesn't mean it gets put up that week. Mm-hmm. So what are we on, 63?
Today we publish episode number 63.
Yeah, so this could be 64, but this could be 65.
Yeah, we have stuff in the bank.
Yeah, well, not really. We've exhausted the bank.
Oh, all right. Well.
So unless we record 2 episodes today.
Yeah. Oh, we are for 100%.
Right. Mm-hmm. This will be the next episode.
Well, one of the things I wanted to ask you about is, and I think we touched on it in a previous podcast, but I didn't think we really explored the idea. So I'd say you and I are approaching middle age or at middle age.
Yeah.
And one of the areas that I've kind of wrestled with over the last couple of years is like stagnation in learning things.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I would really point more to on a professional basis, because for what I do for a living, like, it is what it is. I mean, 23, 24 years sitting in that office chair, like there's nothing left to learn. So when I go, I'm using my quote fingers here, when I go to work, sometimes it feels a little bit on the hollow side, because it's like, you know, here we are again running around the block. So I, over the past 2 years, I've been, I think, a pretty good steward of my spare time and actually actively learning and expanding my own horizons. And then it occurred to me this morning, I was like, you know what? I've never actually asked Kabibi-san how he's expanded his own personal horizons outside of like your writing, creative endeavors, and playing music. I mean, is there things that you actively do?
You mean in terms of like learning something?
Learning something.
Well, I mean, I feel like at least in the last 20 years that, you know, I went back to school a bunch of times and, you know, got a master's and a PhD. So I did learning on that side. As far as like independently, I mean, I do a lot of reading, but again, somebody might argue that, you know, you're not really learning anything because I read mostly novels. It's not like I'm reading, you know, nonfiction or some kind of, you know, expository text.
No, I still lump novels into that. Like, you're actively, you know, engaging your brain in a creative atmosphere.
I mean, I do watch a lot of YouTube videos that cover a variety of topics, but I don't know necessarily to what category that kind of learning would fall in. Like, I tell you what I have been watching recently, because it bounces around. It's not like I stick with one thing, even with one channel, and watch it all the time and learn a bunch of different things from that channel. I just bounce around based on whatever I'm feeling on a given, you know, day or in a time period. And lately I've been watching the exposure of psychics and people who claim they can talk to the dead, which if you go back to the 70s, there was a guy named James Randall. Is that his name? Yeah, James Randall, I think.
Okay.
Or is it Randy James? I can't remember. It doesn't matter. He's a really famous magician.
Okay.
And he spent his entire career just exposing anybody that claimed they had psychic powers, or what is the where you can move things with your mind?
Telekinesis.
And things like that. And yeah, that's what he would do. He would just debunk everybody that was doing that. Of course, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, these people were, I think, more believed that they could do some of these things. And James Randi, or Randy James, I think it's James Randi. I wish I should just look at the internet right in front of me, but it doesn't matter. Anyways, he would he at being a magician, he would turn around and say like, well, I can expose what they're doing because I know all the tricks. I'm a magician. But I think most people still believed it because, again, we didn't have, I think, the access we have now.
Right.
And so it's just getting exposed by a bunch of different people, and just breakdown of their methods, cold reading and hot reading, and how they do what they do. And I find that stuff kind of fascinating. I feel bad for anybody that's claiming to be psychic or a mentalist or telekinetic or whatever power they have, because it's pretty much come down to James Randi. He would put up $1 million, said if anybody can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that they have any of these powers, I'll give you $1 million. And no one could do it. And the of course the condition is that you would have to perform whatever it is you do, and he'd have to be there, and you'd have to prove, again, beyond a shadow of a doubt that you actually can do it. And he would just debunk everybody. And then there was a lot of people that wouldn't take the challenge. He was like, there was one guy named Uri Geller who could bend spoons with his mind. And
I've heard of that guy.
And him and James Randi went back and forth for years and years and years. And he essentially would never really get in the same room with them and prove that he could actually bend things with his mind, because he couldn't. And I think that I've been watching a lot of that lately, and I find it fascinating just because it is pure manipulation and playing off of people's sorrow and things like that. And I find it to be a fascinating choice of a profession that's just a big fucking grift, and that's what you decide to do. And there's a real popular guy. I don't know if he's popular anymore. At least he was popular at one time. He was all over like ABC and CBS, doing all the morning shows. Tyler, oh geez, what's his name? He's a real young dude, and he's the Hollywood psychic, and so he would just do all the celebrities, and it's all completely set up, and it's all filmed for the morning shows. I can't remember his last name.
I don't watch any morning shows. I'm pulling.
Yeah, I'd rather have somebody beat me with a baseball bat than watch Good Morning America or any show like that. Fuck that. But yeah, and it's just sad to watch it go down. He's reading these celebrities, and he is hitting like specifics, but they're celebrities, so they have a ton of information on the internet, and he's acting like he doesn't. Sometimes he doesn't really know who they are. And I'm just like, come on, motherfucker. You know exactly who this is. He's a famous person. He had Corey Feldman on, and he's just like, oh yeah, I know Corey Feldman, whatever. He seems to act like he knows who they are, but then when he gets to the readings, he constantly would backtrack and say like, well, I really don't know you. I don't know that much about you. And like, well, right then and there, you're just giving yourself away that, obviously you've done research. So he does this reading on Feldman, and I thought this was so disingenuous, and it made him look bad to me. I was just like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard somebody say. He's going like, well, I'm getting like somebody in the room, and I'm getting somebody's coming through, doing all that nonsense. And he's all like, maybe a friend of yours, somebody that passed away too early or whatever. And Feldman's like, oh, you're talking about Corey Haim, right? And he's all, I don't know who that is. And I'm like, bitch, if you know Corey Feldman, you have to know Corey Haim.
Yeah, they're hand in hand.
It's like a package deal. So on one side, you're saying you know who he is, but then you don't know who Corey Haim is? Ridiculous. And I'm just like, well, obviously, it's just nonsense. So I've been watching a lot of that. There's a guy on YouTube. He doesn't just do psychics. His name's Martin Decoder. Okay. And he's some kind of psychologist, and he's got his own kind of delivery. He's a real deadpan English guy. And his videos are really good, but he really does break down everything from interrogation, videos to things like psychics and things like that, and bust them apart of exactly what they're doing, how they're doing it. And he gets real detailed. And yeah, you learn those methods. So if that's a type of learning, I've been learning about that.
What about on YouTube, is it Tom Feldman Presents, the World War II channel? Do you ever watch those?
No, you're thinking of Mark Feldman.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Mark Feldman.
You got Corey Feldman.
Yeah, it all jumbled up in my brain. Yeah. So yeah,
Mark Feldman
Productions.
I watched him regularly for a long time. I haven't watched one of his videos in a long time though.
Yeah, it's what's amazing about his stuff. I mean, I think it's absolutely fascinating. But have you noticed that when Mark Felton posts a video, it'll say like 2 hours ago that it posts, and it'll be like 7 million views.
Yeah, no, he's super popular.
Yeah, I mean, his stuff just goes viral like the nanosecond it hits YouTube.
Yeah, and the only thing, and I don't know what else he does besides World War II stuff. I'm sure he does. I always see the World War II things, and I like the fact that he really does pick sort of these kind of odd corners of World War II to talk about. So I've learned a lot from him.
Absolutely. So for all our legions of intergalactic listeners out there, definitely give Mark Felton Productions a look on YouTube.
If you dig history, he's really good at it. Yeah,
fascinating. And it's funny, his intro song, Cookie will be in the kitchen making dinner. Or I'm playing with the cats or something, and just from around the corner, she'll...
Like, dun, 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 whatever it is. I'm doing it wrong, but it's that flavor.
I start clapping along and stomping my feet on the floor, and she, like, Mark Felton Productions presents.
Oh, God. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think you're right, though. As people get older, they get locked into their job, and it just becomes routine. As crazy as my job can be, it's still fairly routine. And, yeah, so I can see that. And I don't know, what that equates to. Maybe it's the idea that, like, probably what would be best for a human in general is not to stay in the same job for 25, 30 years. Switch it up and do something else, and always keep this lifestyle that is keeping you in a constant state of learning something new and taking on new challenges. But then again, you got to go back to the reality that, like, wait a second, I got, bills to pay. Yeah. So what are you going to do? Constantly quit a job, especially if it's a good job and you're getting good pay or whatever, and if you like the job, like say you got good bosses or, whatever you're doing. But I guess that maybe that's more of an, an indictment of working for somebody. Maybe you can do this, switch up every, couple of years or whatever. If you were more of an entrepreneur, take on new challenges constantly.
Yeah. Or actively decide that I'm going to learn. You don't have to be like a Jedi master of it, but I'm going to learn X, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Like when I was a kid, my elective language in school, I picked Latin. And so I used to, in the back of our family minivan, my brother and I would this is back in the 80s, early 90s. We'd flashcard our Latin verbs and like conjugate Latin as Mom was running errands, and I would love to go back to that and actually pick up Latin. And so I actually did. I have a app on my phone that and it was going to be a years long process, but it helps expand my brain, and I think just basic critical thinking skills. So rather than the mundane nature of clocking in and clocking out every day, I've got an outlet to actually do something, create. Oh, I know what I was going to tell you. I created my very first musical track last week.
Oh, sweet.
Okay. So, and we don't, this is not the focus of the podcast at all, but I totally thought of you because you use Audacity for this podcast recording.
Yeah, it's free and it's basic.
Yep.
Yeah.
So one of the issues I was running into is I've been inspired to record something.
Right.
But then it just either doesn't work out, or when you have licensed music, even if it's remixed, it's off of SoundCloud or something, and it's not proprietary. So I use Serato for mixing. The software itself picks it up that it just won't record the music. So you need to record within the one program, simultaneously exporting it through Audacity to actually create the MP3 file.
Well, wait, so rewind. I got to understand this. So I don't know what Serato is, but it recognizes it as copyrighted music and it won't allow you to do it?
Correct.
Wow, that is unbelievably fucked up bullshit.
So
did you pay for this?
You have to pay for the software. It's like,
and the software won't let you if it recognizes it as something. Well, that's bullshit too. Because what if you wanted to record a cover song?
So what I actually did is I used YouTube to MP3 converter to take like a video of a speech and just rip the audio out of it. So I needed the converter to convert and from MP4 to MP3, drop it into my mixer on one deck, and then take a SoundCloud remix of a song and drop that into my other deck, run that song, which was Nas's Made You Look, run that track through a stem player, where I could remove all the vocals. So I could take my MP3 or YouTube to MP3 converter file, which was just a speech, and then lay that over the backing track to Made You Look.
Mm-hmm.
But then I wanted to record it. And I was like, okay, this is going to be awesome. I can actually share this with friends. I can create a YouTube file for my very first time. And then I'm like, why can't, I'm not a dumb person, but I could not figure out how to hit the literally in the middle of the screen, it says record. Mm-hmm. Hit the little button. It won't light up. So then I thought of you and all of your engineering that you do on this podcast, because I'm like, oh, I guess I need to get Audacity and then time it perfectly in both software to actually create the file. So anyway,
when I recorded that guitar piece, I used Audacity, but I had a backing track, so it was pretty easy for me to just lay down the backing track and then record myself playing guitar on it. I do have a mixer on my computer, so I can enhance things and stuff like that. But I've done recording in professional studios, so if I record something, I can kind of understand why it doesn't sound quite the way it should, and then I can adjust. And so I can sort of bypass the limitations of a lot of this sort of free basic software, because Audacity doesn't give you a whole lot of options.
Right. Yeah. But anyway, it was a fun, we were talking about being creative. It was a fun creative experience, and also to learn, like, just for this one song, I used more software for that one song and different software processes than I have since college 26 years ago.
Okay.
So it was pretty exciting, man. I was very jazzed. I created my own YouTube channel to put music out on.
Oh, sweet. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've never done that. I have very little desire to put my music up on YouTube or whatever, Spotify's or whatever I could even put it on. Mainly because it's not original. So it's like, well, okay, what am I going to do? There's a million people that have, like the song that I did it's a Joe Satriani song, and there's probably 100 versions of people playing it, various levels of quality, everything from people actually recording it to some guy just sitting in his room and he hits, play on his stereo or whatever and just plays along with the track. So it's just like, why put mine up? I mean, there's a million versions of it.
Yeah, I think it's probably about just getting looks and the confidence and learning how to do those things and creating content. And then that way, when you actually do have a banger that you want to release, there's actually an audience there to listen to it.
Yeah. I honestly think I'm also reluctant to put stuff up. I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter now. I mean, my name's out there. I got a book and everything. It's bullshit, but it just seems like I try to keep myself off of social media, I think, as much as possible. So maybe the desire to put up like music is just something I don't want to do, because it's just another channel I'm going to have up. Like, well, there's Sean again, and it's just another thing that's out there. And I don't necessarily care to have that much exposure. And it's weird if you're like, well, you're an artist, you do play music, you write, like, don't you want that stuff out there? And it's like, well, it is out there. You can find it. But I'm not a person that really pushes it. And I knew when I wrote the book, and I'm like, well, I'm going to have a website. I mean, my publishers are like, you're going to have all this stuff.
You're going to have a link tree.
And I'm sitting there going, okay, yeah, of course I have to. But once that goes up, I'm just like, I'm not voluntarily putting more stuff up than I absolutely have to put up. I'm in a fucking podcast. Like, honestly, like, again, it's like, oh, you're just putting up. At least you can't see me. It's just my voice, right? So.
Well, I'm proud. I'm proud of us, man. 'Cause we're, again, being middle aged and kind of, and I don't mean stuck in a bad way, but stuck in like not being able to learn something, but actually forcing ourselves and taking advantage of those opportunities.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people just, I don't know what it is. I think as people get older, I don't know if it sounds cliche or if it sounds like, it's just real pessimistic. So sort of like dreams die. People just get stuck in ruts, and they're like, oh, this is my lot in life, and this is what I do. And probably the motivation drops a lot. I think when you're young and you have the whole, world in front of you, it's easy to like go out and just do all this stuff because it's exciting and new, and you're getting out there and you're young and killing it. And I think when you hit 30, 40, all of a sudden it's like, why am I doing this anymore? Like, what, does that make sense?
Well, it does. And I think the thing is thinking outward versus thinking inward, and people being creatures of habit. It's amazing if you actually stop, pause, and just look around, and even just ask just close friends, like, how many people just completely lack that drive to learn anything?
Yeah, a lot of people are like that.
I'd say most.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to go into the outer realms, but I would say I can probably count the number of creative individuals in my life on one hand.
Yeah. I think it's just inherently something that you're born with. And if you want to be creative, you're going to be creative. And I don't think age is going to make a difference. Growing up, most of my friends, they weren't particularly creative people. You know, it's not like they were going to, start painting or writing or playing music or doing something like that.
Mm-hmm.
They were just, your average Joe, go to college, not go to college, go get a job.
Clock in, clock out.
Yeah.
8 to 5, go home, grab a beer, watch TV, go to sleep, rinse, repeat.
Yeah. I think it probably is most people. And I don't think it's, not faulting anybody for that. It's just a personality thing. Maybe people who are creative think like, why wouldn't you want to be creative? There's got to be something you want to, put your stamp on.
Yeah.
It's an outlet.
For sure.
I don't know. I think for me, it's cathartic. It's not anything other than that. I have no, desires to, sell 1 million books. It'd be great if it happened, but I'm not out there like, pushing it. And a lot of I'm involved so much in the writing world and on social media. That's all these people do. Mm-hmm. What they say is like, I'm a writer at heart and I'm an author and it's all about the love and the craft and blah, 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 blah. But immediately it's like, buy my fucking book.
Yes.
How can I get more book sales? Mm-hmm. And that's fine. I mean, again, I think it's always that sort of trap of the artist, which is, where do you draw the line between, I want to make money at this. I want to be acknowledged on a larger scale for what I do. And how much of it is just for the love of doing it. I fall somewhere in the middle. I think art is art. You put it out there. If people dig it, cool. If they don't, well, that's fine
It's
too.
fine.
Yeah, I don't really care one way or the other.
Yeah, a variety of tastes is what makes the world spin.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?
Leave a like on the video. I know you're enjoying this. Can you shut up?
The internet's answer to a question that was never asked. The Tilted Table with Sean and Joe.
I think there's also something immense, well, not just immensely, go even farther than immensely, just gratifying and satisfying when you actually create something. And that level of like self-satisfaction and that you've got a dream realized and you might have captured lightning in a bottle.
Sure.
That is quite the endorphin rush, man.
Yeah. I think that, people who do art and hit big with it, I think it's a double-edged sword in a lot of ways because, generally, especially if you catch lightning in a bottle, you're never going to, I want to say never, it's really rare that you're going to do it twice.
Yes.
And so ultimately, then you start to become defined by that one thing. And you see a lot of artists that, they start to disown a lot of the stuff that was the lightning in the bottle because they keep creating and people don't want to hear or see what they're doing next. Mm-hmm. They want you to go back to that thing. And Prince did this for a long time. He refused to play anything from like Little Red Corvette and Purple Rain because as his career went on, it just wasn't as big.
Right.
And everybody's screaming and yelling for those songs. And he's just like, is that it? I'm just defined by this.
Mm-hmm. Well, at that point, he was not just on a different chapter. He was on a completely different book.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I think that, he eventually relented on that. And he started playing and he started like, well, I'm going to give the fans what they want. And I hope that at some point he came to appreciate that, like, I'll take Purple Rain, for example. I mean, it's pretty iconic. Like, it's not that you caught lightning in a bottle. A lot of people will catch lightning in a bottle and, hit big with something. Mm-hmm. But for something to be pretty much considered one of the greatest things created in music history,
yep, agreed.
That you got to appreciate that. And maybe it's an artist's struggle to a certain degree, like, if I did it once, why can't I do it again? But even to say, well, I don't even expect necessarily to hit that same stride again. But what about a 3/4 of that stride or half that? It's got to play with you as an artist. Like, why is this thing considered the greatest thing since sliced bread? But every time I do something new, people don't really want to pay attention to it. They just want to go right back to that thing.
Right.
And so that's got to be frustrating, I think, for an artist, especially, if you did hit it that big. I mean, I don't know what the mental, the mental gym that you went through where you're fed that, you are a genius. And I think most people will consider Prince a genius. And
100%.
And he put the same amount of effort, passion into everything he did, but there's just this one damn thing that's getting all the attention, and that's got to be frustrating.
Well, and there's also an immense amount of growth. It's fun to feel mentally and emotionally when you do create that thing, even if the thing is not perfect. The fact that it came from you and it's something that your right and left brain was able to put together. I think that's awesome. And as you rep it out, and I know I'm preaching to the choir right now, but as you do more and more, and you realize that your horizons just keep expanding, and you could leave the old you behind, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome, man. It's like part of the journey of life.
I think the other thing that I've always wrapped my head around, and I think this is how I've always approached it, that when, just because something is iconic doesn't mean that it's better than everything else. And I don't know how to say this. Like, I'll give you an example. When I was living in San Francisco, I would go to all these kind of like small theaters and see all these, plays. Mm-hmm. And there were some just absolutely amazing actors. I'm talking about better than most actors, in Hollywood. But why isn't that guy at the top with the rest of those guys? He deserves it. You can just, you watch this and you're blown away by it. And I think a lot of it is the realization that there's a ton of talent, and it's just partly right place, right time. Prince could have done Purple Rain, and it's possible that it just doesn't go anywhere. Mm-hmm. But it did. And I have tons of albums from bands that wrong place, wrong time, that were absolutely just stunning albums. Like if this came out 5 years earlier, this would have been a massive, massive album. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't, so does that make it any less? No. But then you have to start to think about just because something is massively popular, or it has a huge legacy or is iconic, doesn't mean that it stands head and shoulders above the rest. It's the thing that it was picked to stand head and shoulders above the rest. That doesn't mean it isn't good. Purple Rain's iconic. I mean, that's a good album front to back. Hard to argue that that's not one of the best albums ever, put together. And coupled with the movie and the whole thing, it was just, everything hit right at the right place, right time, mm-hmm. hit the right chord. But I can guarantee you there's probably hundreds of albums that are just as good that you've never heard of and never will.
For sure.
Yeah.
Do you find that in being a creative person that you need to be in a certain state or space or lighting or mood or whatever it is in order to be creative? Or do you go in spurts? Are you always riding the lightning? How does that work for you?
Well, and what was it? Wait a second. Before I answer the question, what point was I trying to make with that? This is when you go freestyle. I guess the point I was trying to make ultimately with that was, as much as Prince was probably, convinced in the narrative is that this is special and iconic, mm-hmm. and he has to live under that, that cloud of that thing. Realization is that it is good, but there's a lot of stuff that is just as good. It just didn't make it. So that's got to humble you a little bit. Yeah, I get it. I'm iconic. This album is iconic, but the realization is part of the reason why it is because right place, right time. And there's a lot of other artists and albums and work that is probably just as good. So if I'm making something else and it's not hitting, that doesn't mean it's not as good. Again, right place, right time, mm-hmm. and you got to be able to, I think, sort of humble yourself a little bit in that way. And I think artists that are capable of either being okay with, the one thing that made them famous or the lightning in the bottle is that realization that they're right place, right time. But at the end of the day, it's just a set of songs, and then people love them, and that's great. And there's probably a lot of albums that are just as good. They just didn't hit. Mm-hmm. So wait, do I have to be? The one thing I need is not tired. That's really the only criteria I have for creative. I don't need to necessarily be inspired by anything. I feel like I'm always inspired. Mm-hmm. Even today I'm working on, my new book, and I would go days without touching it, but that's because I'm busy with other things and just haven't had time to do it. But it's always in the back of my mind, I'd like to sit down right now and screw with it. And I don't need to feel particularly inspired to do so. I'm more inspired when I'm actually doing it. Mm-hmm. You're like, oh, that's that's what I want to say. Perfect. Oh, this is all, coming together the way I want it to.
Yeah, motion creates motion.
Oh, for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the hardest thing for anybody out there.
Start.
The hardest thing to do is to start.
Yep.
Once you start, you find that you can do it. You mm-hmm. may find it's hard to stop.
Yeah, I mean, I've blogged every Friday now for a couple of years, and I was actually working on it earlier today. And the hard part sometimes is just and talking to a professional writer right now is like staring at the blinking cursor, right? Sometimes you just need to start writing. It doesn't matter what it is, like just start putting pen to paper or creating an outline, and then just revise.
Well, I think my approach it served me really, really well. And even with my kids, when they're writing just basic school papers, I teach them my approach. And I use this approach for every kind of writing. The worst thing you can do is, in my opinion, is to approach it in a linear fashion. So if I have a chapter, and even if I have the outline, this is what this chapter is about and what is going to happen in the chapter, I don't try to write the beginning. I look at what it is and what's going to happen in this chapter, and immediately there's things I do know. I do know character is going to say these things. So just write that. I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know how deep into the chapter, exactly where it goes, what exactly happens before it or after it, but I know that this is going to happen. I know you just start writing those pieces. And as you write those pieces, then it starts to come together a little bit more. It's like, oh, so before this part, I need to make sure that this happens. And I go, okay, let me write that out real quick. And then all of a sudden you've got that, full chapter rough drafted out. So yeah, that's how I approach writing. So, but if you're thinking like, well, in this chapter, even though I know all these things are going to happen and I also know what my characters are going to say, but how do I open it? And you're just staring at a blank screen. It's like, well, fuck the opening. Write the shit that you know is going to happen. Write that. To start writing it, And once you do that, it'll start to, come together, and so that's how I approach it. And it works well for me. And everybody has their own approach to, writing or whatever art they do. And it's the same with music. I would sit down and just write riffs. I wouldn't think about the structure of a song. I wouldn't think about the lyrics, the chorus. It just start laying down riffs. And these riffs may not even really go together. And you lay down enough riffs and you're going like, okay, here's this riff right here. You hear it in your head going, okay, this is how I would start this song. Okay, let me do that. Put this riff in, and I'm going to change to that riff. And then you start to get a better idea at that point, like how long do these riffs play for? How long is that verse going to be? Do I go from a verse to a chorus, or do I want to go to a verse to a second verse, and then a bridge, and then a chorus, and whatever you can play with it. So it's a piece of clay. But to think of a song from beginning to end, like I need to know exactly how it opens up. Because if you listen, like you could choose, I think Pink Floyd would be a great example. Like a song like now would open up into some sort of atmospheric keyboards being played. It's not like that's how they started writing the song. Like, well, I can't write a song until we figure out the first thing you're going to hear. Yeah, right. It's all written in pieces and then reassembled later and put together.
Well, I think that's part of you just hit on the main thing of the learning experience is the failures and the attempts and all of the frustrations and learning. It's kind of like my exercise from last week in creating the song is like, man, I tried a bunch of times, but it was through all of the failures. And I wonder if I click this, or I wonder if I add in this, or if I edit this way. And I couldn't have created the thing that I did if it hadn't been for the 72 failures that happened prior to that.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the really fun things as a growth as a person is, at least number one, putting yourself out there to start, understanding that failure, it's okay. And that's actually part of the process. And it's probably the best thing to happen to you.
Oh no, failure is the best thing that can happen to you.
Yeah.
But I don't even see it as failure. I see it as learning.
100%.
Failure is just learning.
It's a maturation process.
Yeah. It can get frustrating. I understand that, but I think most of the time in art, it gets frustrating if you are getting stuck on something and you're trying to fit a circle into a square, and at some point you got to let it go and say these things aren't connecting. So I got to scrap something and then come back with something different.
And understanding you can get up, leave, and come back and finish it, and that's A, it's okay, and B, that in and of itself is part of the creative process.
Yeah. Of course. Well, the worst thing I think you can do in any art is to stay on it too long. You're supposed to walk away from it and come back a little bit later and look at it with fresh eyes or fresh ears or whatever it is that you're doing. Yeah. I would never sit down and beat myself over the head. If it's not working, then just stop, because you're just wasting your time. And you're going to produce a bunch of crap that you're going to throw out anyways.
Correct.
Yeah. So you don't want to do that. I mean, I guess some people feel like there's a level of inspiration, especially by great artists, that they just sit down and they're just cranking shit out left and right, and it's just coming to them. That's great for those people, but that's not everybody. It's not most people.
Yeah, I'd say that those people are in the elite, rarefied air, tiny minority, and the rest of us, struggle through it. But we're in there like taking swings.
Yeah. So, I think that the creative process is always going to be a back and forth. It's going to take time, and it's going to take failures and missteps. And I think that that's not just part of the process; it's part of the learning process. And it actually is what's probably going to ultimately make your art way better than it would have been before.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure.
And it makes it not just the art; it makes you a better person because you understand, like, outside of whatever it is that you're working on. It could, impact your relationships, maybe that you're having failures with. It doesn't mean that it's going to end. It just means you need to try again and maybe and approach it differently. Yeah,
it's strange because I've flirted with the idea of doing, putting art on YouTube. At one point, I was going to record my articles, reading them and then just put them up, like audio reads. I just never did it, but this is way before AI. And now, the other day I was thinking, like, maybe I should get like one of those AI programs and have them read my articles for me. I could do it quick.
Yeah, you could. I forget. Were you the person that told me about the program where you can like select the voice? Even like it could be Samuel L. Jackson reading your. Yeah, there's a bunch of different ones that I've looked them up. It seems to me the one that seems to be the best for art. There's different AI generated voices for like if you run a business and you want more of like a business kind of style or whatever. Right.
And one called 11 Labs. They got the best AI. They've got so many fucking options. It's ridiculous. You can do all kinds of stuff. And it seems to be, I've only watched YouTube videos. I've never actually fucked with it.
Okay.
But, the guys are showing you how to use it. It looks pretty user-friendly. Like, it doesn't look like you have to know much. Once you learn the program, you're good to go. You can just create anything. So, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you could totally, screw with that. And like I said, I've flirted with that idea. I just never done it. But again, it's one of those things. It's just like another thing on my plate. And honestly, with the limited amount of time in any given day, I don't really want to create YouTube channels. I already have a podcast. I'm already writing. I just rather stick with the things that are already on my plate.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
I don't want to spread myself too thin.
Sure. But I know, I totally get that. It's one of the things that you and I are doers. We don't sit on our hands waiting for things to happen to us. We generally go out and do the thing. But yeah, no, I totally get that because at the end of the day, sometimes I'll feel like, man, what did I accomplish? And then when I actually articulate it out loud, like I did the X, Y, Z, so on and so forth, it's like, wow, man, I accomplished a lot. It certainly doesn't feel like it, but
Well, I think creative people always want to do something new. It's probably one of the reasons why I don't fuck with music as much as I could or I should, just because I'd rather do something else. I prefer to do writing. I don't, I could choose one of these things to really focus on, and I guess I could put together a bunch of songs and instrumentals, or maybe even write a song and sing. I can sing decently in a studio, and I could put all that out, but I'd rather write a book and put a book out. That's just my choice, over that, and if there's an attitude like, well, why don't you just do both? Some people can, I'm not quite that savvy, I guess,
Well, and it's also, we have day jobs that keep a roof over our head.
That's true. I guess if I did it 24/7, but even then, I think if you do it 24/7, you still find ways to. Well, I guess if I didn't have a job, I could probably do both for sure. Yeah.
Well, again, that goes to our nature that we are, or as people, in being doers. Certainly, we'll hang out on the couch and watch a football game or something, but when it comes down to it, we don't let minutia lag behind us.
No, I don't waste too much time.
Nope, the grass does not grow under my feet.
Yeah, it doesn't under mine either. Yeah.
Go, afterburner.
Was it the words of drugged out Charlie Sheen? What is it? I've got
banging 7-gram rocks.
I only got one speed. Go.
Did you watch that Netflix episode?
No, I've seen clips of it. I don't have Netflix, so I mean that doesn't really mean anything. I'm sure I can get it. I just haven't. Like I said, I rarely watch TV. I have not had time to sit down and watch it. And I love Charlie Sheen, and I was right in the middle of all that crap when he was, tiger blooding out. And so I'd like to see it. And I've seen clips of it. So, and I did listen to him on Joe Rogan.
Yes, that was a great episode.
But there's a guy I listen to named Drew Lane. If anybody out there, if you want to see a good podcast, it's Drew Lane. He's an old radio DJ from Detroit. So I grew up listening to this guy, and he's a shock jock, I guess, but he wasn't really as shocky as like a Stern or a Tom Likas or who's the other guy, Don Imus. But he was always an edgy DJ, and he's great because I watched his episode where he and his little crew are kind of watching Joe Rogan and sort of just commenting on Charlie Sheen. And he just burst out. He goes, I'm not going to lie, man. I like the drugged out Charlie Sheen so much more.
Yes.
Way more entertaining.
It was that one where he was wearing the blue Yankees sweatshirt, and he had put the cigarettes in his nose and his ears.
Yeah, his hair's all screwy. Oh, he was so fucked up. That dude gave no fucks.
Yes, well,
no fucks at all.
He was on Tucker Carlson last week, and that was a great interview. I did listen to the whole Rogan one, but the Tucker Carlson one I thought was absolutely fantastic. And I did watch the Netflix, and that was, I'm like, man, what a life, and how are you still alive type of a thing. Yeah,
I think that's the most fascinating thing about him. As much as he was doing, that he's still alive, and it's like, what did I think he said in one of the interviews during Tiger Blood is just like, I'm built differently, like right, like, he can do all this shit and not die.
Yeah. Well, speaking of another creator, I mean, he's got some great stuff, and it'll be exciting to see what he does with the rest of his life.
Yeah.
I have an important announcement for you, so stay tuned.
Yo, that's some next level shit, bruh. So you got me. Big deal.
The internet's answer to a question no one asked. The Tilted Table with Sean and Joe.
Boom, another episode of the Tilted Table in the can. The internet's answer to a question that no one asked. I'm Sean Kabibi.
And I am Joey Joe, the Fracky Mac. So when in doubt, it just comes down to starting, man. You draw a cartoon on your arm, write a story, come up with something.
Yeah, and
then
start. Yeah, and then start a podcast like we did.
Oh, yes, a podcast about absolutely nothing.